It's just horrible to see that happening. That's just horrible. So surprising to see it here. But we'll have to get over it. We have to move forward. We have to move forward.
You have to get over it. You have to move forward. In these past 2 days, Republicans have made a bigger deal about Trump's ear than they have in the last 25 years and the thousands of kids who were shot simply because they were at school.
Trump is the new Adolf.
Welcome to the Chud Report. I'm your host, MJ. We're not gonna be playing that video from this weekend. I'm sure you've seen it all enough. This episode is going to focus solely on the seamless propaganda machine of the Republican Party and in how in just 2 days, the narrative has completely 180'd. If you like this episode, make sure you give it a like, keep us in the good algorithm, and let's get into it. Let's go in order. Let's first look at how the propaganda machine was fired up. The narratives that Republican media, Republican senators, Republican congressmen put out there, and how that, on the fly, was completely flipped 180 degrees without any kind of questions or looking into it by a very complacent base. Right out the gate, they needed this to be someone on the left, right? And not just someone on the left. They were opining, they were hoping that it was, an immigrant or a gay man or a trans man. They were foaming at the mouth to do it, right? And Mike Collins, this representative, I guess, from Georgia, he's got a beautiful mullet. I'm from a small hick town, as you know. One of the main rules I could tell you is never trust anyone with a mullet. Right out the gate was zero proof. I'm talking, this was like an hour later, maybe not even that. This Mike Collins says Joe Biden sent the orders. And then Dave Rubin here, I think he used to be on the Young Turks. I don't follow these people. When I was on Twitter, Elon would feed them to me. That's the only way I know who they are. He puts up the antifa, right? The boogeyman. And right there, Mr. Tesla himself. How those cells doing, buddy? Mr. Tesla himself chimes in. Absolutely. Apartheid Karen, whose entire youth and generational wealth was composed of scapegoating Black people for political reasons. He knows what he's doing. He pops in. Absolutely. This Chud right here, Ian Miles Cheong, the only reason I know he exists is because he's famous for being an incel. Literally, like that's why he's MAGA. He says, I am 1 millionth. He comes in and says, I am 1,000,000% behind Trump now. As if he wasn't before. As if the last 8 years haven't existed. This is what's really going to put me over the top. We are at war, he says. This was the first shot. This guy doesn't even live in the United States. He's never been here. He's never set foot in this country. He's from Malaysia. All these chuds follow him and retweet this. He's never even been here. So when he says we're at war, does that mean Malaysia's at war? JD Vance, the new VP, right? Trump chose him as VP today. All that ass kissing worked. Election denier. JD says, today is not just some isolated incident. I agree. Charlottesville, January 6th. I agree it's not isolated. It's a long string of events. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. Yeah, I guess I still agree with that. So we got that part right. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. He tweeted this out without knowing what was going on. He did not wait to see who the shooter was. He did not wait for any kind of investigation. This is literally frothing at the mouth. Marco Rubio here. And as an aside, can I just say, I think little Marco has some kind of fetish at this point, some kind of humiliation fetish. Because little Marco, he lives on his knees for this man. And all he gets is the back of the hand in return. And speaking of living on your knees, one of the most unself-aware, self-righteous chuds on the planet had the gall to come out. And he says it's time to dial down the rhetoric.
Said on June 27th, Joe Biden is a threat to democracy, a threat to the survival and existence of our country itself, that's certainly the same kind of language you're talking about.
Listen, everybody is prone to overstatement, okay?
Everybody is prone to overstatement, from the man who calls himself the second coming of Moses. That is rich. Josh Hawley, how to be a man, right? That's his whole grift now. This guy right here. How to be a man. He comes out, he says the Justice Department needs to release the shooter's ID immediately. And everything known about him. No sweeping this under the rug. What are they trying to hide? No sweeping this under the rug 45 minutes after it happened. We need to get to the bottom of this. All right, Joshy, you want a name? You want to know who it is? Thomas Crooks, a white Republican gun nut, right? Registered Republican. I mean, maybe it was this that ticked him off.
Or might take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system. Because a lot of times, by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this.
I like taking the guns early, from Thomas Crooks' classmates. He definitely was conservative. It makes me wonder why he would carry out an assassination attempt on the conservative candidate. Smith recalled a mock debate in which the history professor posed government policy questions and asked students to stand on one side of the classroom or the other to signal their support or opposition for a given proposal. The majority of the class were on the liberal side, but Tom, no, not Tom, no matter what, always stood his ground. Choice words there. On the conservative side, Smith said. That's still the picture I have of him, just standing alone on one side while the rest of the class was on the other. That is the description of the Republican Party if I've ever heard one. And do you know what Josh Hawley did as soon as he found out this was a gun nut? A right-wing gun nut? America's fastest sprinter did what America's fastest sprinter did. He ran away from it. The poster boy of American cowardice. Josh, where you going? What, no fist bumps for your boy? Not this time, huh? We have to get to the bottom of this. No sweeping it under the rug. So what is Twinkle Toes talking about today? What's he tweeting today? Josh Hawley did not mention Crook's name once. We got to get to the bottom of this. What he's tweeting about today is how DEI is responsible for this. You see where the propaganda machine's going? It's only been 2 days. And they can take a full 180 degree without molesting the trans of the base at all.
This. Look, I'm not sure about who the individuals are on the individual detailed Secret Service, but I can tell you under this Biden administration, the one thing I've seen is massive DEI hires. And I can tell you, when you primarily go after DEI, you end up with DIE.
A little dramatic there. When you go after DI, you end up with DIE. And honestly, I thought this was the worst thing DEI could ever give us. But I digress. We must find the shooter was such a disturbance in the force it even woke up Skeletor. Ann Coulter, where's she been? Where's Skeletor been? Why are there girl Secret Service agents, she asked. Incel whisperer Matt Walsh. Why is the female agent ducking her head and exposing Trump? That female Secret Service agent who's putting her life on the line, getting in front of Trump, moving so he can get his little photo op, moving while, people are injured, one of them dead right in front of him. But the most important thing was this. Those people making that possible, who just jumped on top of him to save his life. Those people, not we got to get to the bottom of this, whoever did this. Not him anymore. It's the women who were protecting Trump that are the problem. And Fox News producers, after, a couple months, a year of taking away a woman's right to health care, not even trying to take away birth control, this outward attack on women. They said this might be a bad look for us to go on there and say women shouldn't be Secret Service agents. So what they do, the big brains of Fox, they brought on a black guy. So once you're talking to a minority there, and you can tell, look, they zoom in on him first. They put the camera on him first and breed it out. So you know it's okay for them to say DEI is bad.
We know that being politically correct and the DEI got us Kamala Harris as a vice president. And now we know that so many different industries have been hurt. Is this part of the process?
I can't be racist. I have a black
saying,
friend.
Excuse me. When you have the Secret Security Director saying this about her goals for the agency, listen.
We need to attract diverse candidates and ensure that we are developing and giving opportunities to everybody in our workforce, and particularly women.
Her goal was 30% of the force being women. Why? Just get the best people, for goodness sakes.
That's ridiculous. And as a combat guy, as a veteran, as a West Point guy, I really don't care what race, religion, color, creed you are. I want the best person for the job.
So that lady's not the best person for the job, they're saying. They bring the black guy on to tell you that. Because what good are tokens if you never spend them? At the end of the day, Republicans are extremely limited in the issues they can talk about, how deep they can go. Anyone who's ever tried to have a conversation with a Republican in the last 20 years probably knows this. But what they do know are the buzzwords. And so when they need to, they apply them to everything. Josh Hawley, we need to identify the shooter. Oh, no, not like that. What buzzwords can we throw at this? How about DEI? Because a white Republican shooting another white Republican, that's DEI's fault. That's black people and that's women's fault. And it totally makes sense to you if you are a complete moron. Just look at Trump pardon propagandist alpha male here, right? This alpha male. Dinesh Suja. He says women have no idea what to do. Watch these female agents. They have no clue what's going on, besides immediately jumping on the president while there was an active shooter. You think little Dinesh would do that? Nah. So step one of this Republican propaganda machine. The shooter does not fit the narrative that we want to push. So let's move on to step two. Step two, women and minorities did this. Step three, for anyone who might have, a functioning brain cell. Step three, we have to appeal to the cult. Step three in the propaganda process, send money to Kevin Zorbo? That doesn't make sense. Look at this. Proceeds from this shirt will go towards the Trump campaign. And then he gives you his website. Hercules Light here. Of course, step three is the cult.
We are making history today, that we're going to be writing history this week, that President Trump is part of this history. And just for him to still be alive is absolutely a miracle of God. And we're so grateful that God is not through with Donald Trump yet. And he's here to lead us, and we're here to put wind beneath his wings.
Yeah, amen. Well said.
God stepped in to save Jeffrey Epstein's best friend. But then God was like, you know what? That took a lot of work saving Trump. So I'll just let these three other people get shot. Including one, a firefighter who was immediately killed. A firefighter with kids whose name does not appear on Jeffrey Epstein's flight logs. If any of this makes sense to any of you out there, I assume he's talking about the Christian God. Because Zeus would have came down and saved everybody. But Zeus is like a solid guy. The Christian God, not so much. If this makes sense to you, that God came down and moved a bullet from Donald Trump, do us all a favor. Pay the $10,000 and finish the lobotomy. And I will never get used to the cult worship, but this Republican Party leans into it like a familiar blanket. Just look at this. Mike Johnson's kids' notifications must have been burning up his phone. They must have been going crazy when Daddy posted this. Because Moses Mike, this picture right here, he just had to crank out a couple to it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Moses Mike here has a beat-off pack with his kid, where every time one of them beats off, they tell each other, they share what they're looking at. But don't worry. I'm told by Christians it's completely normal. It's a completely normal thing to do, and that kid will probably grow up with no scars, no psychologist appointments, knowing every time his dad masturbated. And like we said earlier, Lil Marco, who's not VP, didn't even get considered for it. Little Marco, keep humiliating yourself down there in Florida. God protected President Trump, but not the firefighter guy. And not the 2 other people who got shot. Just him. When I was a kid, when I was a boy, the boomers used to say, don't believe everything you see on TV. And now, those same people find something on Reddit, some copy pasta on Reddit, where some rando takes a video of, Trump golfing, whatever one of the 1,000 times he's been golfing as president or campaigning, that's all he does. I imagine if he wasn't on the brink of going to jail, he could just still be doing that. They read and they believe a totally rando Reddit post that says Trump was out golfing the next day. They believe it because they have to, right? He's so built up in their minds that you need this fuel to keep going. They don't care that it's fake. This will never make it back to him that it's fake. It doesn't matter that it's fake. And it even seems tongue-in-cheek because the kid throws in some North Korean propaganda there, He's like, Trump sunk a 20-footer with probably 2 feet on the break. And then he looked at me and says, difference between me and the shooter is that I don't miss. Then he winked at him. Everyone stood up and clapped. They believe this stuff. And as I'm reading this, you're probably like, yeah, well, some morons probably believe that and shared it. Mike Lee posted this from a Reddit post from a random person that said Trump sunk a 20-foot. Mike Lee, I'm from Utah. The Republicans from Utah are republicanism in its lowest form. I'm here to tell you that. The Mormons back home, they wear their religiousness and their piety like armor against everyone else. They're so righteous, right? And then a girl from back home that I know, she's so Mormon. She's so religious. Last election, she dressed her kids head to toe in MAGA gear. These people like to use the word groomers. And then you see them do stuff like that. Make their kids into Hitler Youth. And Mike Lee here is the pinnacle of that. He is the end result of that culture. He takes a story from Reddit. Something he probably knows is fake. I would hope he knows it's fake. But he takes it to the cult of worship for the sole reason of a political party. And from there, it just gets lower and lower. You got the people already tattooing it on him. Try to tell me this isn't a cult. Try to tell me America does not have a mental health crisis. They wheel Angelina Jolie's dad out. You know what I mean? Sudafed's new spokesperson, Kid Rock, he's on there threatening people. We're all scared of this guy right here, right? And you're off to the races because in this bubble, a complete 180, bringing in, taking away more rights from women, more opportunities from women, and minorities, you know what I mean? And adding a layer of MAGA worship onto the top of it. And do you know what's going on Fox News, on Newsmax, in these little bubbles, on Twitter, what Elon's putting to the top? Do you know what's happening there? I can tell you what's not happening. They're not talking about the identity of the shooter anymore. Josh Hawley, swept under the rug. The Chud Report. Thanks for watching this episode. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe. You've been here a while, you like this content, you can become a member. You can help support the channel directly. I didn't want to make this episode. What happened this weekend is a tragedy on so many scales. And honestly, some of the things I actually want to say, there's no way I could say in a video on YouTube. That's what I have to talk to my friends about, right? So I wanted to avoid it, but it is impressive to me that this Republican Party, who used to not be able to tie their shoes without tripping, this Republican Party is so organized and knows the limits of their base. I'm talking about these limits. They know them so well that they could be brazen enough to start with a demand for a shooter's identity. When that doesn't come back what they want, we could totally forget about that in just 48 hours. Most likely we're going to have a live show on Thursday for the convention. I'm sorry, but we should probably do it. So I'll be here live if you want to join me. Totally understand if you don't want to. But thanks for being here. The Chud Report.
And we'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know?